Welcome back to the Harpreet Singh Show, and this is Tania's Truth Talk. Today we have a guest. Her name is Victoria. She's actually a personal friend of mine over the last 13 years, and Victoria has been involved in exotic dancing. She is here today to shed some light on this industry to the public and to warn young girls not to get into exotic dancing. She's got a lot of interesting stuff to talk about, and I'm going to welcome you to the show, Victoria.
Hi,
Now, Victoria, I mean, you and I go way back.
Long time.
13 years. And while we met, I was a madame. I had several girls working for me, and you were an exotic dancer. And I remember you were traveling all over the place. You were really on the road as a exotic dancer, headlining in different provinces and things like that. And the Victoria that I know is not the Victoria that people see on stage, or even that I've seen on stage. It's like you just snap into this whole different person, you know. And I come personally, I'm dead set against exotic dancing, and ironically enough, you are now too, even though you've been in it for 10 years.
Yeah.
So, you know, how did that all come about with you even getting involved in exotic dancing?
Well, at the time I was 20, and actually I think it was before my 20th birthday, somewhere around there that year, and I needed money. I just needed a job. I racked up credit cards, and someone came along and said to me, you know, you've got a nice body, you should think about taking your clothes off. And of course I'm like totally foreign to this, had no idea what to expect, never been to a strip bar in my life, and I kind of walked into this place, and they sort of teach you how to dance, and that's how it started, or to feel comfortable more or less on stage.
So when you walked into this place and you saw, I mean, back then, exotic dancing, in my opinion, I mean, it's not glamorous, but according to society, it was more glamorous than it is now. And were you enticed by what you saw these girls doing on stage at a young age that you were?
Not at first.
Oh, not at first?
No, not at first, because I started at a place where it didn't really have featured dancers, so it wasn't really a circuit where I went. It was all this table dancing stuff, so it was completely different. And so I had a hard time with it. Let's put it this way when I first started. Yeah.
So it obviously wasn't as easy to do as what you know, a lot of the dancers portray on stage, because I know you've told me before in the past that you completely, it's almost like you can get an Academy Award for Best Actress, because you can go on stage and become somebody that you weren't. Is that like a coping mechanism or something to deal with what you're actually doing? Are you compartmentalizing or something, would you say?
Well, I think you start to just become numb to it. It just becomes second nature to you to take your clothes off, for one. Knowing that you're going in there, it's like a job. When a lot of people will say dancers are lazy, but they have no idea what's entailed in the job and all the things that go with it. But going back to...
Well, what type of things would you say, like, to go with it? Are you talking about the mental anguish and things that it does to your life? Because I know that you've suffered a lot of depression as a result from exotic dancing, and you've even isolated. You've done that with me too.
I think a lot of people. But I think what happens is, in the industry, is I tried to separate myself from the other dancers.
Yes.
And so because I didn't want dancing to be part of my personal life.
Okay.
So I basically would go to work, do my show, and leave.
But you are kind of an exception to the rule, though, because a lot of the girls that get into exotic dancing, they were not able to do what you have done. I mean, you've stayed away from drugs, you've stayed away from the prostitution, where most of the girls don't. So you've really kept that a separate, but it's still, even though you kept the drugs separate and stuff like that, like you never fell into drugs, you never fell into prostitution.
Well, I mean, I experimented with drugs, of course, in the beginning more so.
Right.
And I hung around the industry, people within the industry, within the first couple of years, because I was naive, I was young, I didn't know I didn't know anything, you know, so I found the reason I pulled myself away was because I saw what the drugs did to these people, did to just all the people in general. I mean, this is just not the dancers. I mean, you've got your DJs, you've got your bouncers, all the people that surround this industry.
So it's the whole environment of the industry.
Exactly. And I just saw eventually what these dancers, like when they reach even the age that I'm at now, 35,
they're not looking as good.
No, and I thought, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be 35 still dancing and being told that, you know, you got to hang up your shoes, you're getting too old. I just didn't want to be that person, and I just couldn't be around all the drugs and the constant drama, and so by not participating in that and removing myself from that, I became a loner, basically.
Yeah, I know that. And it's also, you mean, you've been out of dancing for quite some time now. How long has it been?
About 4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yes.
And you are still, even though you have not fallen into prostitution and drug addiction, you are still suffering the after effects that exotic dancing has imposed on your life.
Well, what dancing did for me after, I mean, the positive thing it did for me was the fact that I was able to, I mean, I am who I am today because dancing was part of my life. And really, I didn't have to go to school to get an education in psychology 101.
In hard knocks.
No. Okay?
Yeah.
So in that respect, I have a really good sense of who I am in that way. But it's like you come out of the industry and you have to rehabilitate yourself. You know, you come out, it's like starting your life all over again.
You know, it's ironic that you say that, because I had a previous guest on my show, Becca Banks, and she made an interesting statement. She said to me, Tania, the amount of years that you would spend in exotic dancing will be the same amount of years, if not more, getting out of exotic dancing. And I told her, I mean, I'm the founder of an organization that rescues dancers and prostituted women and so forth. And I tell these women that your brain has to be completely reprogrammed to reintegrate yourself back into society. And that's kind of what you've had to do too, right?
Well, I think what it is, you know, the money, like I said, has deteriorated over the years and it's gotten worse. There's not really, in my opinion, much of an industry left. However, the reason these girls continue to stay there is because each time they try to get out and try to get a job where they can't get hired because they can't put this on their resume, they don't know how to fill the gaps, so guess what? Back in the industry they go.
Now,
and you know, because they need to pay their rent or they have children to take care of.
You made an interesting statement to me earlier that once a strip club owner had said, oh, they all say I'm only getting into it for a year or two. You'll be here for 10 years. What was that you said?
Well, it was actually an agent that said that to me. I said, oh, I'm only going to do this for 2 years. He goes, you'll be here 10, 15 years later. They all say that, you know. And
that he was right. That happens with a lot of girls.
Yeah, it does.
So it's a lot of girls, it's the intention to go in and just be in for a year or two, rack up a lot of money, maybe get a down payment on a house or something, but they get sucked in and literally...
It doesn't work that way. You get into the industry, if you want to make money, you got to invest money. So I can say for the first 2 years, sure, I was making great money, but I mean the investment that I had to put into the industry to make the money.
Right.
So if you're not going to be that top girl or close to it, it's hardly worth it to stay in the industry, as far as I'm concerned, at least
So
now.
how is it that you're trying to pick up the pieces in your life now? You know?
Well, for a long time, I've had to go through therapy, just to deal with, everything that happened. Like the whole industry, I kind of kept inside of me. When I left dancing, I went to school. But what happened was when I went to school, I felt very alone because I didn't know what to talk to people about. My life was about dancing.
Yeah, you didn't want to be branded by the people at school, but you didn't want to put yourself out there either. So it's like you're trying to fit in, really.
You're trying to find your place in society. And I can honestly say someone did find out at school and people did judge me because of it. And
So would you say that from experience as an exotic dancer that you've kind of almost branded yourself, and that, you know, to warn young girls who are getting into it, you are branding yourself? I mean, that's what I see happening.
I don't regret what I did, as I said, because it's part of my, it's a chapter in my life, basically, a chapter that's closed.
Yes.
Right? For actually physically being on stage and, you know, performing. But when it comes to helping others, you know, if I can deteriorate one girl, maybe two, just to stay away from it. It's just what it does to you inside. It just eats at your soul.
So we're here with Victoria, a former veteran exotic dancer. Tune in after the commercial break to Tania Truth Talk to get more on the story.